Hey, it's Chris Hassel and Andrew Downs from Instant Iowa, the fastest reaction to every Hawkeye football game. Maybe the most emotional as well.
Yeah, celebrate with us when they win, commiserate with us when they lose. Either way, we're going to be here.
Yes, we will, right here on Iowa Everywhere, instantly after every Hawkeye football game.
Chad Leistikow, Scott Dochterman, the two biggest Hawkeye and Big Ten beat writers, together on one show. GameDay Men's Health proudly presents Legends and Listeners. Best enjoyed with an easy Eddie from Big Grove Brewery. This is Legends and Listeners, exclusively on Iowa Everywhere.
Hey, Hawkeye fans, Big Ten fans, and Iowans everywhere. It is episode number 116 of Legends and Listeners on Iowa Everywhere. As always, coming to you from the Channel Seed Studios, as always, presented by GameDay Men's Health. This is Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register, along with Scott Dochterman of The Athletic. Got my ADM Tigers shirt on, Scott, coming in hot from the Class 3A state qualifying meet as we record on this Wednesday night. And Pella, our boys made it. We're going to Fort Dodge next weekend. There they are, the ADM Tigers. Really proud of my son. We even upset the number 6 team in the state. So my boy had one of the best races of his life. In a good mood. Hawk fans are in a good mood, too, after Iowa's 25-24 win over Penn State, Scott.
Well, that's a lot to process there, Chad, for being in a good mood. And yes, I think Iowa fans should be pretty excited right now because all of the angst that we saw early in the season is now kind of dissipated. I think with a couple of wins and knowing that there's a chance to be bowl eligible by Saturday night, I think, and you've got everything out in front of you for what you might want to do. So overall, I think Iowa fans should be pretty excited for what has transpired and the potential of what could be.
Yeah, Hawkeyes up to 5-2 overall, 3-1 in Big Ten play. Right there in the race. We'll talk about if they win this week. Maybe we'll talk about playoff. What they would need to do. But I do want to bring up something, Scott, that you and I disagree on just a little bit. On Iowa Everywhere here, Chris Hassel, our friend, on Two Guys and Andrew Downs were articulating that they thought this was the biggest win in 4 years for the Hawkeyes, and of course it got a lot of chirping, from all sides on that. Some agree, some disagree, especially, the non-Iowa fans in particular, I think really took aim at that. I happen to agree with him, but I know you do not. So why don't you let me know what you thought when you saw that?
Well, first it takes me back, to think of what transpired on Saturday night, and it was a nice win. And I think it was an important win because this team was 1-5 the last year and a half when it came to games decided by one score or less. And you need to learn how to win those games, and you need to learn how to win games where you're down by double digits and you've got to come back and you've A, got to stop the other team, and B, score your points. And so I think that is probably something that, it's understandable that this is important. And I'll ask this to clarify: in 4 years does not include 2021. Is that correct, Chad?
He's saying since the Penn State game.
The Penn State game.
Yeah.
Well,
that year.
Okay. And I will make the case that I think there are more important games because since that game, twice Iowa has clinched division titles. Those are trophies. Those are important. That's a symbol of accomplishment. And Saturday night, you beat a team that hasn't won a Big Ten game that's 3-3. Granted, it has blue blood name to it in Penn State, but this is a team that also lost to UCLA and Northwestern. So I think the win is important, and I think it could rewrite the scope of the season, but I'm nowhere near going to say that it's in the same category as, say, Illinois in 2023, where you had the first game you had the first game-winning touchdown to clinch a title in Kinnick Stadium since 1956, when Caleb Johnson took off and won 15-13. That last one was 1956 with Jim Gibbons catching a touchdown against Ohio State to clinch their first spot in the Rose Bowl. So I think that championship games matter more, but I think in the narrative that this season, it is an important game.
Yeah, I think certainly the Illinois game was a biggie in terms of winning the Big Ten West. That Illinois team, I think, went 5-7, if I recall correctly. It wasn't a real good Illinois team. And, again, I'm not saying, well, this is clearly the best, this is undisputed the best win they've had in 4 years. But I think the point that also he was making, and I agree with, is they really haven't had those real quality wins over top tier competition. And I'm fine calling Penn State top competition here. I mean, they've got an unbelievable, that's the best roster they've probably faced in this all season. Well, no, not Indiana. Okay, sorry. But that they've beaten. And I think a couple other little points are that, against these, I mean, I still classify Penn State as a big team, no matter what their record was this year, because that those guys tried, by the way. I mean, that they gave 60 minutes of effort. It wasn't like Penn State laid down in that game. And they had gotten blown out by these types of teams. Penn State 31-0 in 2023. Michigan, you get blown out by in the Big Ten championship games twice. Ohio State, of course. Tennessee, in the bowl game, 35-0. That was the same year, right? Maybe I'm trying to recall.
Yeah, well, that was 2023. Yeah, but
yeah, I mean that. So I mean, even though they beat Illinois, Cooper DeJean was out for the season. That team was going nowhere. You won a championship, sure, but your program was just not in the level that I feel like it is right now, and I think that's kind of what the feeling is. I think Iowa fans feel like they can compete now with the upper tier programs, and they really haven't, as much as you want to applaud wins in 2022, 2023, 2024, they haven't hit above their weight really in a while. And I think coupled with what they did against Indiana, sure, it was a loss, but you feel like they really would have won that game with Gronowski in there. By the way, they led at 13-10 when he got hurt. I think there's a feeling of, hey, this program has taken a step, and this was a needed win. Because if they don't win this, Scott, then it feels like one of those other seasons where you're like, okay, well, let's see if they can go 8-4.
I don't disagree that it's important to this season, and I also just think that if Penn State was ranked, I think you'd put it in there, but. Now they're 0-4 in the Big Ten, and that's something that they're 3-4. They're going to lose to Ohio State in a week, and then they're going to lose to Indiana the next week. They may not even be bowl eligible by the end of the season. So to clarify it as a big win or the biggest in 4 years, I'm just not there with that. I think that you look at in 2022, I really liked the win at Minnesota when it was -1 and Jack Campbell's game and the way they came back there. And I mean, if we want to say just because of the blue blood status that Penn State's there, that's fine. But this is a reeling program right now, and I guess I think 2 years worth there they won the West Division title. They're not even guaranteed to win anything more than 8 games at the most this year. I mean, you look at Oregon and USC. I mean, if they lose to Nebraska, I mean, that's a 7-5 year. I do think that hardware matters, and winning 10 games in each of those years, I think that's important to, it's something, tangible that they achieve. So I'm not willing to say that this was that important until I want to see the context of the season. I think the feel-good era is fine. But again, Penn State, it was kind of more the story than Iowa was the other day. And just they fired their coach. And I would rather talk about the good side of what Iowa did as opposed to try to rank the win in immediacy, because I want to see the context of the season before I put it above a championship deciding outcome, which happened this one and in 2021 at Nebraska. I mean, that was an incredible comeback that day.
No, that's true. And what's kind of funny though is they have those 2 top 10 wins in 2021, and also a win over a ranked Indiana. But that Penn State team wound up going 7-6 and 4-5 in the Big Ten. Iowa State tanked that year. They ended up going 7 and something, right? Maybe
7-6.
7-6. And Indiana went 2-10 because Penix got hurt. So all those wins look kind of good when you look at the record. Like they beat this ranked team, but then again, you end up was it really like a top 5 Penn State team? So it's just, I guess the point being is like Iowa just had, and I think the biggest, honestly, my biggest point on the whole thing, and I'm not saying like we should rank them or anything like that, but I think the point of this being a program differentiating win for me is that you had an offense that actually didn't get stopped in the second half. They scored every possession in the second half when they were down 21-10. Like, when is the last time that? Probably been Indiana 2009. That was about the last time that someone thought of off the top of their head of like where they overcame stuff with just a big comeback with offense. Maybe there's been something since then, but Pitt 2011, of course, but that wasn't a good team. So anyway, it just was nice to see the offense like have a big part of this too. The Illinois game was 15-13 and whatever. I don't even remember the circumstances of that, other than it was a really ugly offensive game, and I'm sure absolutely not good. So.
No, he was never good. So, that's fair. I mean, if we want to base it on the offense, I'm a proponent of getting the trophy, and that was a game winning. That felt pretty good at the moment. And Brian Ferentz getting showered after the game, but that said, I mean, I guess more than anything, what I would like to talk about with Iowa is the dominance that they displayed in the running game the other day. 245 yards, 7 yards a carry. And the most impressive stat of all to me, other than the outcome, Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant, two NFL guys, two guys that I expect to be in the fight for first team All-American honors, combined for one tackle. And
I didn't even notice that. Wow. Good
Durant had 0 and Dennis Sutton had 1. And he went up against a sophomore left tackle who was getting better each and every game. And collectively, this unit was ranked number 1 by PFF and dominated the line of scrimmage. Not just Mark Gronowski's runs, but Kamari Moulton was 1 yard shy of having two guys with 100 yards rushing. And this line is rolling. Somebody asked me when's the last time that Iowa offensive lines looked like this. I said 2008 with Sean Green, and it's part of it's because I just don't want to get hyperbolic yet about 02, but they are rolling, and they have a chance to continue that roll this week against Minnesota. So I would say that the way this team is performing. And there's a lot of, snootiness out there about Gronowski's passing stats, but guess what? Touchdowns matter, and if you score them all on the ground, who cares? Passing
touchdowns are one of the dumbest stats when you really think about it.
It's just
because you threw it into the end zone instead of ran it in. Like, what does it matter?
What does it matter?
He's got 10 rushing touchdowns.
He's 1 away from tying the Iowa record for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback, which was set in 1960 by Wilburn Hollis. He had 11 that year. And that year was when Iowa won the national title. They won a shared part of it, and Minnesota claimed the fuller piece. Iowa was the best team in the country that year. And so he's right now tied with Larry Lawrence for second, who was in 1968. And there's still 5 games left in the regular season. So I think it's, okay, maybe this week you just get the monkey off your back, throw 2 touchdowns and run for 1 and let somebody else score 2 more and win 35-10 or something like that and shut everybody up for a week. But I think the way this team is running the football, it's scary good. I mean, it's not just average good. It is really good right now.
It's impressive, and I put this in one of my stories. I'm trying to remember which one. It might have been DVR Monday, but I went through all the games because I was trying to find the last time they averaged this many yards per carry in a single game. It was 7.42 or 7.43, I believe. The last time, Scott, in case you didn't read this, believe it or not, was 2012. of all seasons against Central Michigan.
They lost
that game. Yeah.
Oh, that was such a
Mark
terrible
Wiseman
game.
had Mark Wiseman had 20. God, I gotta pull up the box. Mark Wiseman, I think, had 27 carries for 220, and they had one team rush for like -2. And that was it. That was all their carries in that game. But it was more than that. Was the last time Iowa was more than that. And I listed the other 5. Like the other 5 would make more sense. Like they were right below that, but it was so hilarious. It was a home loss to Central Michigan, 32-31. That was the last time. But that just shows, like, wow, yards per carry against Penn State. That you did that, and they frankly did it last week against Wisconsin as well, against a very good rush defense. So they are. You're right. They are rolling. I mean, remember that it wasn't that long ago, Scott, when it was like the season average was like around 3 per carry.
Oh yeah,
for about 3 straight years there.
Yeah, it wasn't until Tim Lester got there that it really started to skyrocket. I mean, it was really good in 20. And then from 21 to 23, it was bad. I mean, it was at 3, and it was just like first down was like they're averaging like -1 yard on first down. I mean, it was just gross. And but now you're looking at they're averaging 5 yards a carry this season. They're averaging more than 190 yards on the ground. And this is Iowa. This is a different style of running. Some teams do average, have high yards per carry, but that's more of a spread style where you're kind of gashing. But Iowa is a physical grinded up style, which has a cumulative effect that teams just cannot stand to go up against. And so at this point, when you have they're hitting like a fist, the offensive line, their chemistry is perfect. Their the ability to get off the ball, get to the second level is tremendous right now. And when they hit, they are putting people on their back repeatedly. It's not just a couple pancakes here. I mean, this is like IHOP. I mean, they're really going to town here, and on top of that, you've got Mark Gronowski, who's a big physical runner and is doing a nice job there. I compare him to Taysom Hill. I know everybody wants to talk about Tebow. I'm not. Tebow's a little different for me, but I would go with Taysom Hill, who plays now for his Saints. He's been in the NFL for a long time, kind of that hybrid type. And then Kamari Moulton is moving up the charts. He is one of the better running backs in the Big Ten. We saw one Penn State had. He was probably the only offensive player that had any value, I think, the other day, and Katron Allen. But I think Kamari Moulton's right in that same category, and I could not be more impressed with him the way he's playing.
Yeah, I think that's a lot. I think it's all part of why Iowa fans are feeling really good right now. I mean, you see Mark Gronowski, hey, he can run still with that knee. I mean, just think, like 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, we were wondering, would Gronowski take the field at Wisconsin, and if he did, like, what on earth would it look like? Is Hank Brown or Jeremy Heklinski going to have to play? Like, how long can he last? And he looks good. I mean, the one thing he talked about the other day is the passing has not come along. And I actually talked to Gary Danielson, who's doing the game for CBS, and I was asking him about Gronowski mainly, and he made a really good point. I'm going to put this in my Friday prediction piece, but that when you are a running quarterback like this, you get hit a lot. You get hit in the ribs, you get hit in the shoulder, you get hit, and then you're asked to throw these touch passes, immediately, constant. It's just not. It's a lot to ask. So the accuracy isn't there. The knee is the big part of that right now. He was kind of hitting a groove at Rutgers, I would say, and he was good at against Indiana. It was a short passing game, but I don't want to come down on him too much for the passing right now, because he's just doing so much in terms of winning, in terms of his legs. I mean, how about that play, Scott, on 3rd and goal from the 4, where it was a pass call. Yeah. And if it didn't get the look, they didn't get the look they wanted. So the check was a handoff to Moulton. So not only you saw him do this with his ears, but then he improvised beyond that in the moment and did not give it to Moulton and took it in for the touchdown, because he saw what Penn State was how they were reacting to that action. I mean, talk about a clutch play by a quarterback, and just feeling the confidence to take those matters into his own hands. And then, of course, he does it on the bootleg too, with Tim Lester's coercion.
Exactly. I had to break down both those plays for me on Tuesday. I wanted to hear from him about that, and I thought that it was really interesting to listen to what he was thinking and doing on the goal line. And I think on Saturday night he was also saying how he would have gotten a 0 for that if it wouldn't have happened. But he said, Lester gets it because he is a quarterback and he understands some of those things. But the other day he was describing how when he was looking at his pre-snap, how he was reading the eyes of the secondary and the second level, and he could see that everybody was geared towards the run, geared towards Kamari Moulton, and their eyes weren't where they needed to be, where he was wanting to go. And then and then of course on the bootleg, I kind of said, 40 years ago there was a bootleg that Iowa did that nobody else knew about except for the quarterback and the head coach, and asked him if he knew about it. He really didn't, and that's understandable. But Chuck Long against Michigan State, and and how even Chuck was like, well, what if they tackle me or something? And he's like, you're gonna score, So I thought that was pretty funny. But passing wise, 10 of 16. He had the tipped interception, 68 yards. Yes, the yards are not what you want. However, when you can control the game and run for 243 yards as a team at 7.4 yards per carry, you're engineering victory. And that's selfless. He came to Iowa to be a passer, and he admitted it, the other day he wanted to be more of that. But, winning is everything. And at Iowa, you're asked to do things in a selfless fashion. And he's always been that kind of quarterback at South Dakota State. And he certainly is now. So I still expect the passing game to come around, to get better. I don't expect it to be great. I don't even really probably expect it to be good. But I talked to Gary, too, for a while on this and a couple other topics. And, and he was kind of the same boat. But, we talked about the Indiana game. He's like, if he's there, they win. And it's true. And then you're looking at it going, okay, this team could be approaching 7-1, but they're not. And, they've got some work to do if they want to get to where they would really like to be. But that said, they got to go straight through their old friends from the North. And we know what that means.
Exactly. Mark Gronowski is in his early 20s, and GameDay Men's Health can help you feel like you're Mark Gronowski's age in your 20s again. Us old dudes, we can benefit from testosterone replacement therapy. Because it's going so well, I just entered the Drake Relays 10K next April as I continue to feel the benefits of a weekly tee shot over in our West Des Moines location over here. You get a little extra energy, a little better disposition in life, better performance in everything you do. GameDay can help you achieve all those things and more, not to mention weight loss. Get connected with GameDay Men's Health for a private, no obligation, free consultation by visiting GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Or, as always, stop by one of their locations in Ankeny. They're bustling locations. They're getting busier and busier. Ankeny, West Des Moines, North Liberty, and now Naperville, Illinois, as we've been mentioning on the show. So appreciate GameDay getting, Mark Gronowski's back in the game, and you guys can get back in the game too.
I tell you, it's been good and almost a little bit bad for me that I hate to say it, but all these like sweaters and things that I've been wanting to get out of the closet, and I put them on and I'm like drowning. They're drowning on me right now, and which is a good feeling. But after a while, I'm like, I could use something here. I don't want to spend all my money like I'm a teenager at the mall or something buying clothes. But
going to the Gap.
Right.
Abercrombie and Fitch. There you go.
Yeah, I'm back to being my 20s again. They're teens more than 20s.
We need a new sponsor, Aiden. We need smaller clothes.
Yeah, thin man and whatever. But no, it's been great. It's always great. And I would say this on Monday morning, full room, and it's like, oh my gosh, usually, not that long ago, 6-8 months ago, I might be the only person walking in. Now there's almost all the chairs are taken at the one in North Liberty, and they take care of you. So it's definitely worth going to.
I want to talk about one other thing around the Penn State game before we talk about Minnesota, and that is how horrible. And we sit next to each other in the press box.
Yeah.
So we bitch about this all the time. No, both ways. Okay. But I don't know how you can be so bad at spotting the football if you've got all these officials out there. They are horrible at it. And there were some very consequential bad spots the other night that gave certain teams first downs. The one, there was three of them, three big ones that I've itemized in my DVR Monday column. And I know there were more. But what I know that this is a pet peeve of yours too, because we talk about it all the time. So I just wanted you to get this off your chest. So go for it.
I hate them. I mean, I'll be honest. The Michigan game, there was a really bad spot against Michigan of all teams. Usually it's the other way around. And I'm like, what are you looking at? And, you've got a linesman and you got a line judge on opposite sides of the field. And for whatever reason, and I think it's part of the game mechanics, but they stand at the line of scrimmage as they watch the ball move. They're not sliding. And I'm not an official. And I know there are officials who are listening to this are going to, come down hard at me because they generally do. And they have over the last 30 years that I've said anything about officiating. But isn't there something in the mechanics that once the ball is past the line of scrimmage in a run play or a pass and it's been caught, that they slide with the ball a little bit? Because I'm seeing them mark guys like if they're standing at the 30 and there's a running back or even a pass that gets to the 37 and they're spotting it at the 36. And I'm like, the guy's knees aren't down, the ball's there. Where are you? Why are you doing that? And at the same time, we've got this replay, and I'm not saying I totally get sick of replay myself, but get the spot right, because then all of a sudden it's 3rd and 1 and you're inches short, and it's like, but you would have had it if they would have spotted it correctly. And so, Chad, the other night, I know there was the Gronowski slide. There was another play too, and you can.
There were three of them.
Yeah,
the very first one was actually on Penn State's very first drive. Jackson Smolik, I think it was his first snap, maybe it was his second. It was second down only, but he did a keeper, and there was no way he got to the 10-yard line, no way, and they gave him just gave him the first down. They gave him the first. And there's zero angle on the TV that even shows the ball coming close to the 10. And then the other two biggies were on actually Penn State's last drive, the last gasp drive. One coming out of the 2-minute timeout, which was 1.5 yards off.
Yes.
And the replay and the Peacock guys were in there like, why aren't they looking at this? Like his foot is literally out of bounds with the ball in his left hand, like behind him. Okay, well, I'm trying to get myself on the screen here. So his foot is out of bounds at like the 42. The ball is back closer to the 41. The guy marked it. He, of course, he comes up from about the 35, comes up and does and then winds. Marked it at the 43,
right,
for a full yard past the first down. And this is in the 2-minute drive. Like it's a 1-point game, and the replay never looked at it. Like I blame the replay more than that.
Right.
I mean, the Peacock guys are talking about it. They're like, what on earth, And ultimately Penn State got the first down, but we've seen time and time again, Iowa can stop a 3rd and 1, a 4th and 1. Like they missed one the other day. Like you just can't just award first downs by an extra 1.5 yards in that situation. I mean, so anyway, it's not just because it happened to Iowa here, but it's just constant. It's every week. The one before that's I'm sorry to keep ranting here.
Yeah.
The one before that on the drive, the official, he marked it short and then he lost his balance and then he put his left foot to where it was a first down and they put it down there.
Exactly.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, how on earth?
I've seen some diagonals.
He literally lost his balance and then just put the ball forward where he regained his balance.
Exactly. I mean, it's really just mind-numbing to some extent. I mean, because I've seen diagonal movements. I've seen, a linesman, when they're running in, all of a sudden they start to slide one way or the other, and it's not because of the ball. It's just the way they're going. And it's like, you guys, you got to be cognizant of this. I mean, we're talking about a game of inches, 3rd and 1, we're challenging the spot and they got to be careful with this. This is big time football and these plays matter. I mean, there are millions of dollars were at stake for the winners. And so,
people's prop bets.
Yeah.
No, but NFL does a better job at this. It's not perfect, but they do have I don't know what college officials like. It'd be a good story for us to do probably, but how can they communicate in their ear real quick? I like how the NFL does now, like this replay assist, like this really quick thing where they can just respot the ball quickly, or after replay assist, it was not pass interference or whatever. Yeah. I feel like that you could use something like that in these Big Ten, like power conference games. Okay, if you can't do it in Conference USA or Sun Belt, fine, but like it's a Big Ten game. You got 15 cameras or whatever, 23 cameras, whatever you got, and hey guys, that ball should be at the 41 and a half, not the 43, and they huddle for like 2 seconds. You don't have to go to a commercial and a 3-minute review. And you just respot the ball. You're like, okay, we made an error. The TV noticed the error. We're going to fix it right now. Like, that's what replay should be doing.
Exactly.
And the NFL is getting better at that, I feel like. Anyway.
And you got, Dave Whitavet and, up in the.
Don't bring that name up.
You've got guys like that, officials who have done it for a long time. I won't say anything else, but that are in there that could say, instead of buzzing from up there, it's like, hey, just nudge it forward 6 inches or a yard, or move it back or whatever. You could do things like that. It's just, you don't want to challenge every spot. Sometimes it's just a little bit, there's a foot here or something like that. But anyway, that's just part of the aggravation.
All right, what else do you want to talk about? I feel like I've led the way here. I know you got a lot of topics on your list. So where do you want to go with it next?
Chad, when we've talked about a lot of rivalry games for Iowa over the years, and I did the rivalry rundown package, top 100 this summer, and then there are other games that Iowa has. I mean, it's kind of funny. I have on Thursday morning in publishing. It's kind of a story about, or it's a mailbag, Big Ten mailbag, and one of them is somebody asked about teams that get hated in the Big Ten, and of course Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State are up there. But I also, they asked, what about the Corn Belt? Is there any team that gets hated? I'm like, yeah, Iowa does. Iowa gets a lot of hate, and the team that they're playing this week is literally chance. Who hates Iowa? We hate Iowa, and it's Minnesota. And Iowa plays for 4 trophies. It plays for the Cyhawk, it plays for the Heroes Trophy with Nebraska, it plays for the Heartland Trophy against the Badgers, and then, of course, Floyd of Rosedale. And when it comes to the traveling trophies, there's none better than this one. This is the epitome of traveling trophies. If there's one that's in this category, and it's only one, it's Paul Bunyan's axe from Minnesota and Wisconsin. This has the most history. It's the most meaningful. And the other ones are symbols of victory and they carry importance. This one matters in the biggest context of all. I mean, it saved this rivalry. It prevented some really serious things going on between the programs. And it's legendary. It's the pick. It's funny. Daryl Thompson, who is one of the best players in Gophers history, he and I trade pictures back and forth during the week. Like, I had his ham sandwich that I brought to the Kinnick press box the other day when I was up there, and I took a picture of it. I'm like, your turn, and then he sent me pictures of bacon, and but it's fun, but it's awesome. And to me, there's no other trophy that even approaches this, especially that Iowa has.
Well, and it does mean a lot also to PJ Fleck. PJ Fleck has been a real, really, stokes this up himself. And what was the story last year? Or 2023? Give me the story, because I don't want to get it wrong, because I know you and PJ are buddies now. So
yeah, we're friends.
He slept with the pig is what I remember, but it probably wasn't quite that bad.
Yeah, I asked him about it, and he kind of toned it down a little bit from that. But he took it home. He took it home with him. It was in the same bedroom as him and his wife, Heather, that night. And he said in his neighborhood, he said he didn't take it to his bed, but he did say that in a different interview. So I'll say that I don't think he was lying to me. I think he was embellishing with somebody else. But in his neighborhood, a cul-de-sac in the southwest suburbs there, he says there's an Iowa fan who flies the flag high every time they play the Gophers, and he knows that PJ lives there, and he's like, I've had to go home and see that flag high after we've lost so many times. Well, he put it in his car to take it to the office the next day, and he rolled down the windows to make sure Floyd had a good look at this guy. And he drove as slow as possible. He goes to make sure his Ring camera could see Floyd in my car. And yeah, so I thought that was pretty funny. And I think it was the next night that they took it to the Dome because the Vikings were playing a Monday night game. And Paul Rovnick, the sports information director, assistant athletic director there, took it there, and then to show it off for the game, and then packed it up, drove it into his garage, got out, went inside, and he's like, I can't leave Floyd of Rosedale in my car. I mean, what happens if somebody stole it? So him and his, I think it was, I can't remember the exact age. I think his son was 11 or 13 or something like that. They went out and picked up Floyd and brought him in the house to make sure nothing happened to him. So yes, it really is important. There's a pig pen for him in the locker room area. It's got a big chart name, and it's important to Iowa too, in the landing area, the facility. Oh, yeah. It's right there with the trophies, and there's just so much history attached to this. I mean, some of the fun stories I could say, like Forrest Evashevsky loved it, and one time they did lose it, and he had to give it back. And what they did then, they didn't charge the field in the 50s, but they would give it to you in the locker room, and he was just delaying it to be an asshole. And he ended up, ultimately the Gophers were starting to get mad about it. And he told the team managers, all right, give it to him hind first. He didn't want to face it. It was that. And, another time he went there and he wanted to charge his team up, and they gave him tickets. That's how they used to do it, where they would go in and he was on the team bus. And so they'd have to give whoever tickets for each of the players. And he had them, but then he said he didn't have them, and then they weren't going to let him in. And then he got in a huge argument with the ticket taker to get everybody riled up to make sure that they were ready to win and stuff. And then there's just other stories, all over the place. So I love this series, and Hayden. Hayden Fry in 1982, changing into the straw hat and the overalls and the flannel, and just because Smokey Joe Salem did the same thing at practice to make fun of Iowans, so it's hilarious.
And of course, Ferentz was on that staff, and then Floyd of Rosedale is in one of Kirk Ferentz's most famous quotes as Iowa coach. Go back to 2020 when the Hawkeyes won up there. Got pissed a little bit at PJ Fleck trying to score against his backups. It was 35-0 at the time. Called 3 consecutive timeouts in minus something wind chill.
There was 19 seconds left.
Yeah. And then he says, no sense taking timeouts on the bus, right? You guys are reminding me of that a couple times over the last 22 years. And this was on Zoom. So it's just Ferentz is all disheveled, he had his stocking cap on the whole game. He just kind of wants to he goes, figured we'd take Floyd with us and leave the timeouts here. Mic drop.
I know. I asked PJ about that too. I asked PJ, and he goes, that was awesome. I had nothing to say about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's funny. I mean,
one of Ferentz's all-timers. And that was when, I think that was the same week same day, maybe, that the lawsuit? No.
It was the same year. Yeah, it was that fall.
Same day.
It might have been
the same day the lawsuit came out. So it was just a really whatever time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so
well, let's hear it. By the way, let's hear what.
Hey, Kirk, do you want to talk about what was going on at the end of the game with both sides kind of calling timeouts and seemed like just playing to the end of this game?
Well, we they called a timeout, I guess, to get a look at what we're doing or reconsider. So we just kind of wanted to make sure we got a good look at what they were doing, and no sense taking them on the bus with us, right? I think you guys were reminding me of that a couple times over the last 22 years. So figured we'd take Floyd with us and leave the timeouts here.
I mean, he didn't even snort or anything. He was just like, F you. There's my mic drop.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then,
that's the rivalry though.
Yes.
There's bad blood even, and I'm not going to say these coaching staffs love each other. I know PJ has a lot of respect for Kirk, but I don't think I think Iowa would be very happy to win this one on Saturday.
Right. Well, and then of course we were looking at what happened 2 years ago. And, that was the last time Minnesota hadn't beaten Iowa in Iowa City since Kirk's first year when they were 1-10. And they barely won that game. It was 25-21 Minnesota back in 1999. And you look at that play, it's still just twists the knife. And I was looking up some stuff today about it, and Taylor McCabe's tweet after she goes up and drops 5 3-pointers a couple months later up there in a 108-60 win for the Hawkeyes, and next thing you know she says it wasn't a fair catch. She just tweets, and now there's Gopher shirts that say it was an invalid signal, but I was
good for them.
Yeah. Well, I was the pool reporter that day.
That's right.
And so I was the one in charge of getting comment from Tim O'Day, the lead official. Yep. And he was pretty nervous. And, and I don't, I still think it was a bad call. And I know, talking to people up north, they're very convinced that it was the right one. But they didn't know it was the right one until it went under the hood and they called it that way. Let's put it that way. They won't admit that, but and that's really the fault of replay. I just don't like that you're looking for something specific and then you find that. But when I was in the officials locker room area, I'll describe the protocol for everybody. First, you have to alert the home SID that you would like to speak to the officials. And so then you have to provide the specific question and one follow-up question to the officials. It has to go to the Big Ten, who has to approve it, send it back to you. You have to ask it word for word.
Jeepers.
And then the official has to get it in advance. And the official, Tim O'Day wrote it out in pencil. It really wasn't as much his call as it was at that time Pittsburgh. Now it's the zone is in Chicago. But there were, I would say, between 15 and 20 police officers that were parked outside the officials' locker room, and they handed their keys to the police, who brought their cars to the stadium, because now nothing happened. But you've got to be careful because you just don't want something, to happen like that. And he was really nervous in talking. And then at the same time, all you could smell is this thick cigar smoke from PJ lighting up in the pink locker room. And, and his players were just like, smoke them if you got them. That's what he said, and lit up. And he has a big picture of him hanging in his office of him lighting up in the pink locker room. And so then the chain gang got escorted out to their cars by police, and it was a surreal scene. And then of course, Cooper was distraught after the play. And then when you guys talked to him, and Kirk was beside himself, and rightly so. So
yeah, I don't like that. If he had never come close to the boundary, it never would have gotten reviewed, because that's what they were reviewing. Did he step out of bounds? Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now you review, because I had the conference call with the Big Ten and whatever the next day.
Right.
They're just like, well, once that happens, you look at every aspect of the play, and it's like, okay, I get it that maybe that's the letter of the law, but you're really going to swoop in and do that. But people are still sour over it now, obviously. And remember the guy behind home plate with the shirt or whatever?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right.
Like an MLB game or whatever.
Yeah.
And he went viral with the "It wasn't a fair catch" T-shirt. So
outside of Wrigley, like the next week with Northwestern, there was it wasn't a fair catch. And, I know, Jeff, a friend of mine from Mills, he's at the Final Four and holding up a sign, it wasn't a fair catch. And, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of those. And even Cooper DeJean's grandparents, they had it on their Christmas card that year, wearing shirts. It wasn't a fair catch, but, No, I'm with you, and I'm with, it's like if you're going through the speed camera on the S curve in Cedar Rapids, and you're going,
everybody knows that.
Yeah, no, unfortunately I do a few times, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but they got you because your blinker was on too long, or you had a tail light out while they snap that picture. I mean, come on, that's just not right, because on every single play there is some sort of penalty you can call.
Why don't you just call holding every time?
Yeah, you can call holding. You could call bad words being yelled at on the field. So I just think that it also, it's another wrinkle in this incredible historical rivalry. It's tied for the fourth most played rivalry in Big Ten history. They've been playing it since 1891. And, in fact, another interesting aspect is the first time Iowa won against Minnesota was November 9th, 1918. And in the Cedar Rapids Gazette, the Monday paper, on the front page, you've got the armistice for World War I. And then on page 7, you've got Iowa beats Minnesota for the first time in history. Yeah.
That's really funny.
So, yeah, it's special.
Well, I'm so excited to welcome a new sponsor to Legends and listeners, Athletic Brewing Company, which makes me so happy that they have come aboard to our fine show. America's largest dedicated non-alcoholic brewer, started in Stratford, Connecticut with owners Bill and John. They crafted over 100 batches on their home brew equipment to perfect their process, and now they've gotten so big. They're in bars everywhere. They're just everywhere. In their grocery stores, you can get them at Hy-Vee, all the spots, Fairway, of course. Now they've moved up the street to Milford, Connecticut, and have expanded to San Diego, California, which enables them to serve both coasts and get you the freshest non-alcoholic beer. Athletic Brewing is the choice for me as a non-drinker. I took my last sip of alcohol exactly 2.5 years ago today, and every time I reach for an Athletic NA beer, I get all the flavor of a great beer, but none of the alcohol. And you know what this was something I found so cool, is that when I was training for my half marathon, you're like, what do you drink the week of? And it's actually non-alcoholic beer is good for you because it has, there's different properties of it that, help you stay hydrated and whatnot. So even that, so it's good for you too. So skip the resolution, start now with Athletic Brewing. I'm partial to the IPAs myself, and they have some great ones with the Run Wild IPA, also the Free Wave IPA. I'm sure I'll be telling you all about their other great products, which I've had. I've had 7 or 8 of their beers and non-alcoholic beers, and they're all tremendous. They really are tremendous. So I'll be hopefully sampling some more as we go, telling you about them. But if you want to check them out now, visit athleticbrewing.com, and if you want to check out Athletic Brewing, and they are fit for all times. So you can have you can have them for breakfast if you want. It's that's kind of part of the deal. So really happy that they came aboard. We just love getting new partners on this show and help us bring you this show every week.
Well, and if you are deciding, I need a little bit of alcohol in my life or a lot of alcohol in your life,
whatever you want, man.
You can get an Easy Eddie, and it goes down just as easy. It's a great easy IPA. They've got awesome patios and vibe. It's starting to get a little chilly. Put on a jacket. They still have different kinds of fireplaces. I see the one in Cedar Rapids every Monday night. It's beautiful. You can still watch Monday Night Football outside. You can watch the Hawkeyes versus the Gophers this week. They got them in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Des Moines, and of course the OG in Solon. They're going to be building one in Omaha before you know it. And the food is great there, and the beers. Again, Easy Eddie. It's terrific. The Citrus Surfer hits the spot. Their neighborhood beer. I like the 1939. And let me tell you, it's named after the Iron Man and Niall Kinnick. And one of the greatest wins, if not the greatest win of the Niall Kinnick era, came against the mighty Gophers when he had 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to upset the Gophers 13-9 in 1939. And that was at the time when Minnesota was more like Alabama, and Bernie Bierman was steaming coming off the field, according to Bob Brooks, who was in the knothole section. And they didn't have Easy Eddies back then, but I'm sure Bernie Bierman would have wanted one at that time. And if you can't decide, I'm not going to go out there, but you could still buy them at just about any supermarket around here, anything from Big Grove. And I recommend the 1939. We're still in October, so have an Oktoberfest and get your Easy Eddy, the most popular beer in the state of Iowa. So thanks so much for listening. And
Bernie Bierman. That's what a great name.
Yes, great name. Fantastic coach.
We've put this long enough, so let's preview this game, Scott. Iowa is a 8.5, 9.5 point favorite, depending where you look. I've seen it come back down to 8.5. I was surprised that the number was so big, but it's a game that I wrote about it that both teams are kind of coming off their most emotional wins of the year. So I think this is a game about who comes back to earth in the right way, the best way. Because we know in college sports, when you have that big emotional win, sometimes you can have that letdown or whatever you want to call it, and I went through some of Iowa's best wins in the last 8 years. 55-24 over Ohio State. What happened the next week? 66 yards at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Go back to 2021. Beat Penn State. Next week.
Don't.
David Bell. 24-7. 4 interceptions or whatever. Or 3 or 4 from Petrus. Had some, when you have these big emotional wins, it's hard to come right back. And I'm not saying this one was at the level of those two, but I'm just saying it can happen. And there was a lot of emotion in Kinnick the other night. No field storm. Same time, Minnesota's coming off its best win of the year, Scott. 24-6 over Nebraska. So what do you make of this matchup?
I think I look at Minnesota as kind of a combination of things. One, I thought they were pretty ordinary before they played Nebraska. Like they didn't really stand out in any kind of area at all. They were just kind of there. But now I'm coming out thinking, they're not terrible in any area. There's not an area that they still stand out in, but they're solid just about everywhere. They've got a good young quarterback in Drake Lindsey. He's been really effective. 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, completes 62% of his passes. If he was an Iowa quarterback, you'd say, hey, they've got a bright future with this guy. And I think they do. They've got 3 pretty decent wide receivers. Lemeke Brockington is their best one. And I really like the tight end, Jamison Gears. I think he's going to be an issue for them on offense because he is really big and he's capable of catching a lot of passes. So I'm interested to see how, they handle him, whether it's with the strong side linebacker and, or if it's with, Cash. But the best offensive player they got, bar none, is Darius Taylor, the running back. He's a real deal, and he's a challenge for them. And when you look at, kind of to me, what stood out more than on the offensive side for Minnesota was that 98-yard drive in the third quarter. I mean, they're on their own 2-yard line, and they churned out, a 9-minute drive, and Nebraska couldn't do anything against them. They really ran the ball with authority, and they had not done that all year against anybody, any team that mattered, I should say. And then flip it over to the other side of the ball. I mean, Anthony Smith is a handful. He's got 9 tackles for losses, 7 sacks already. He was dominant the other day, and they were dominant with 9 sacks. But you wonder about coming down. I think Minnesota has to really coach against that, and it's basically because it's easy to come down if you're getting punched in the face, and that's what Iowa likes to do. And I think if Iowa plays sound in every area and then can really punch like they're capable of doing, which they did in the second half up there last year, I think it could be very much that same type of game because, Minnesota, in really other than sacks, which they have 23 because they had 9 last week, they're really pretty ordinary across the board and stopping the run and in just about every area. So I think if Iowa plays Iowa football, I think this is an Iowa victory, and I'll say it's probably by 2 scores. Really? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, this game makes me nervous from an Iowa perspective just because Minnesota is first of all, you got I just want to reiterate, Penn State gave 60 minutes of great effort last week. And I personally thought that there was not much drop-off, if any, from Aller to Grunkmark. Aller had not played well this year. Yeah. So I didn't think that was a major factor in this game. Now, I did feel like Parker was able to attack him a little bit more, maybe than they could have, Aller, but who knows? But what I am trying to say is Minnesota's going to give you 60 minutes. They're going to give you 60 minutes of effort, I think. Every single time they've come into Kinnick under PJ, they've played Iowa tough.
Yes,
17-10 in 2010. 23-19 and 19. Now, that was a great win for Iowa. 2021 they honestly outplayed Iowa. PJ kept settling for short field goals, and Alex Padilla hit Charlie Jones for one big play, and Keegan Johnson broke his tackle on a screen pass. I mean, it worked out great for Iowa. Iowa got outplayed that game.
Yes, they
won 27-22. And then 2020, obviously the 2023 game was just a mess. 12-10, Iowa lost. Deacon Hill, I think Iowa had 12 yards in the second half. So that was a Brian Ferentz classic. But anyway, what I'm saying is they play hard. They're going to play Iowa hard. Fleck knows how to. He will stick with the run. He will be patient. He's willing to slog it out with Iowa. So it's going to be tough. So it just makes me pause because Gronowski his pass game is off right now. And I think he needs to get to the bye to get that knee back to where it needs to be so he can be that more all-around player. Because I think that's actually the part that's furthest to catch up here. So it worries me a little bit from an Iowa perspective. The spread is a lot. It seems like a lot of points to me. I would lean towards Minnesota and the points, but I still got Iowa winning because I think they do have the one elite unit on the whole in the matchup. They got the one elite unit, and that's a really important unit in the offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the way they've scored or not scored for the most part. And, Minnesota, is right there, barely beat Rutgers at home, barely beat Purdue at home. They got beat decisively at Cal this year. There's a lot of different areas. I mean, third down offense, they're not good. Red zone defense, they're bad. Red zone offense, they're bad. It's just they're just kind of ordinary other than Anthony Smith and the two safeties. I mean, Parrish and Brown are as good as anybody. And I do wonder, can they withstand Iowa being very physical with them, for 4 quarters? And I don't know that anybody can really handle it. It's just a matter of, can they outscore Iowa enough and then force Iowa to remove that part of the game. But, I think as long as Iowa handles Anthony Smith, and I'll say this, the way that their offensive line handled what I thought was a really good defensive line the other day tells me that they should be able to do what they need to do up front. And then it's really about protecting a lead and not getting too far ahead of themselves. Because frankly, last week was a dominant win if you take away some significant mistakes, the tipped pass that ended up as a turnover that turned into a touchdown, and you take away the blocked 66-yard field goal attempt right before intermission, and they went for a touchdown. I mean, you can't take them off the field, but you're looking at a completely different game if Iowa's mistakes aren't there. And it was kind of even Cohen Entringer, who had a great game, if he doesn't step offside, on a 4th and 1, and he's in the slot, there is really no reason for him to be offside.
He wasn't in the play. Yeah, he wasn't in the play.
Yeah, and that's probably pretty disturbing. But I think for that play, for Cohen and for anybody else, what you got to do is just flush it. And the best way to flush it in Iowa City is to go to Ackerman Plumbing. And I know now we're getting into a chillier season. We're getting frost warnings now, and not with Scott. So I think what you need to do is it's time to discover how the plumbing industry can be when you choose a customer first, independently owned and operated business like Ackerman Plumbing. Ackerman Plumbing serves the Iowa City area, and we're very thankful for their support here on Iowa Everywhere's Legends and Listeners and Instant Iowa. Ackerman is only in the residential plumbing business, so your calls matter and will always be answered in a timely manner. Whether it's for a plumbing emergency, routine service and maintenance, equipment replacement, or upgrades like tankless water heaters and water filtration systems, call Ackerman. We love a business that's growing too, and Ackerman is looking for another service tech to join their team. If that's you or you know someone, reach out to Ackerman. Shout out to the Ackerman team, Corey, Stacy, Aaron, Nathan, and all the rest. So visit ackerman-plumbing.com for 5-star residential plumbing services in the Iowa City area.
Speaking of 5 stars, Xavier Wampa had a great game the other day. Best
Yes,
game
he
as a
did.
Hawkeye. That was
No
really
question.
fun to see. He's such a good dude, and really glad to see him have a moment like that. But let's talk about real quick before we go. I know we're over an hour here, so we'll just do it quick. But implications of this game. I feel like this. If you win this game, here's my feeling. Win this game, and you kind of buy yourself 2 more weeks of hope of something big. You can still make something happen. We're not going to talk about it too specifically here because I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But you would make that Oregon game really, really interesting on November 8th, and you have 2 weeks of build up for it. And you think it's probably the big noon game from our conversations. That's your prediction. I always trust you on TV stuff. If you could be 6-2 at the break after kind of, seeing Gronowski go down, you lose that Indiana game, you lost the Iowa State game the way you did. Man, that would be a really good feeling going into November where Kirk Ferentz is 21-2 in his last 23 games.
Right. That is, and that's an opponent that if you've got 2 weeks of buildup for Oregon at home, you've got to feel like, all right, and you can get everybody healthy, there's your best shot. That's what you want. You want to play games that matter in November that have implications beyond the game itself. And that didn't happen last year. And you want to make sure that you put yourself in that position. And I think if Iowa could take care of business and beat a team that it should beat, if it plays well, a rival, maintain your trophy, go 6-2, week off, then you play Oregon. It's either going to be big noon kickoff or it'll be a CBS at 2:30. Then you're in the spotlight. You have a chance to be ranked at that point because I think, there was probably going to be a little bit of, looking back. I mean, by then you'll have the first CFP rankings. And I would suggest that from going through that mock selection process that Iowa will be much more favorably looked at than by the AP voters. So you've got a chance then to get into that conversation where you want to be, and you're playing a marquee opponent at home. So it's got everything pointed in your direction. And so big picture, everything's still on the table. Sure, getting to the Big Ten championship might be difficult because of the Indiana loss. And now you're going to have to hope for either A, an Ohio State loss, which I wouldn't hope for that, or B, hope Indiana loses twice. But
that's not going to happen.
And I doubt that. I just don't see that. Maybe once they'll trip up. But the other part is if you go 10-2, then you're in the playoffs. You are a playoff team with this schedule, and that's exactly where you want to be. So, but more importantly, Chad, you've got hope until the second weekend in November that's a possibility.
Kind of what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah, this still. I said this on our Hawk Central show too, but I looked at DraftKings on Wednesday morning, and Iowa was still plus 4,000 to make the playoffs. So this is an extreme long shot in terms of what the Vegas people say. You can give that was the best odds I saw. But anyway, it just buys you more. It buys you more time because you're right. If they go finish 10-2, I can't. We're already getting further along than I wanted to here. But they would finish third in the Big Ten at worst, and they would have a head-to-head over Oregon. Mm-hmm. I mean, you would have every single thing you would need on a resume to get in. That's what I'm saying. Because they're not going to just put 2 Big Ten teams in.
No, I mean, at that point, you would look at, let's say that would be Oregon's only other loss, and then Oregon's probably in 2, but then you're probably going to be ranked ahead of Oregon, and you might have
be perfect for the committee because then you've got Oregon, Indiana, Iowa. Iowa played Indiana tough. Oregon lost to Indiana. Like these are all quality teams. Like it's very simple in that case.
Exactly. And And, they would have quality wins. I mean, I think USC would be a quality win. And I got asked the other day, if a 10-2 Iowa versus a 10-2 Notre Dame, and I said, it's Iowa all the way. It's not even close. I mean, because they both would have beaten USC. That would have been Notre Dame's best win. And then you would throw on Iowa with Oregon. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're not wearing red. We're not got this team in the playoff already. I would not bet on this.
No.
However, it's not
maybe a plus 4,000.
Maybe four. Yeah. Well, you want to throw a little bit of cheap change on it.
$5 on it. But.
Yeah, right. But I'm saying don't spend your Christmas money on it. But
yeah, you get some new clothes, Scott. Just throw $10 on it.
Yeah, I can't do that. But
I know. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
No, but that's what's that's what's on the line this week for the Hawkeyes. If we're back here next Thursday and they lose this game, it's gonna be hard to talk about like really what's left to. You're gonna have to really regroup to find good stuff to accomplish this. Yeah, you can go win out or whatever, but this is a game you got to win. So you got Mark Gronowski, which was funny. I kind of brought this to his attention, like. You're 54-8 as a starter, but you didn't finish 2 of those games.
Yeah, right.
One of them being the national championship when he tore his ACL. I think that was very early in the game, right?
Yeah, that was like 6 plays into the game.
Yeah. And so he's like, yeah, that sucks that counts against me, as a loss. And then the Indiana game. They were leading 13-10 when he was in the tent. So
yeah.
So he's really 54-6. I mean, but I'm sure that maybe there's another game in there where like some other guy came in, but I doubt it. He usually finishes the game. So
yeah. And I'm sure the one that kills him the most is still probably of all of them is when he looks back is probably that semifinal loss to North Dakota State last year. Cause that is, and those 2 teams are playing this week, 1 versus 2.
Are they? Oh
yeah. And,
what time's that game?
That's a night game.
Okay.
So yeah.
And, hey, real quick, any other good Big Ten games this week? That you want to mention? What's worth watching?
What's worth watching
besides
this week?
The Hawks
and the Hawkeyes. I think you've got a couple elimination games. This one is an elimination game if you want to call it for the playoff. Mm-hmm. I think Illinois Washington is in that same category as well.
5-2s.
Yep, 2 5-2s. The loser doesn't have a prayer. The winner still has hope, and that's again, as we talked about, is pretty important. You've always got to watch Michigan State because you just know that something's going to happen and it's not going to be good, but it's like watching a car wreck happen. And it's at Michigan State. So there's going to be something because those 2 teams, they're big rivalry games, but there are ones that are just scary in some ways. I think Michigan State's in that category. And then finally, I think this is intriguing for a lot of reasons. UCLA at Indiana. UCLA's played really well since they've changed coaches. And Indiana is playing as well as any team in the country. So what kind of effort is going to happen there? And then finally, at the same time, Northwestern at Nebraska.
They're both 5-2 as well.
Yeah, so that's an elimination game as well. Crazy. They should have a trophy made in the real NU. Because even though one team is Northwestern University and the other one is the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, so one team does it right, the other team, the old Big 8 all does that. They call OU, MU, KU, and they're all.
Hey, now not all of the old Big 8.
Hey. Iowa State University is fine.
Yeah.
Yes. Oklahoma State University was fine. But CU, NU, KU, MU, what are you guys doing? I don't know. But anyway, so the real NU is in play this weekend.
So we'll get out of here in a sec, I promise. Oregon's on bye, right? Oregon's on bye? Yeah.
No, they're playing Wisconsin, so yeah, they're on a bye.
Never mind. My point's gonna die. But anyway, there's a bunch of teams in the Big Ten right now with 1 loss. Iowa is one of them. So you can if you win this game, you're also just kind of inching your way up the standings a little bit because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 teams in the Big Ten with 1 loss behind Indiana and Ohio State. So you're technically in they're all 3-1. So you're technically in a 7-way tie for 3rd right now. So
Yeah,
you can
it
bust
is.
out of it this week if you beat Minnesota, which is also 3-1 in the Big Ten.
You're exactly. And it's at a mosh pit situation. The SEC's in the same way, and that's why somebody asked me about the rankings in my mailbag, and I said, look, it's probably a good thing that's still about 2 weeks away. Because right now it's hard to really determine. You're going to have to need some results on the field, and then there's next week, where Iowa is off, and so is Oregon, by the way. But then there's a couple more separation type games in the Big Ten. You've got USC at Nebraska. That's one in that category. Does Purdue upset Michigan? That's something I don't know I bet on, but something you watch. Indiana going to Maryland. Malik Washington's a pretty good quarterback, and and then broadly, locally in the state, you've got Iowa State's got 2 really big games back to back at home, BYU this week and Arizona State the following week. So a lot of eyes out there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Scott Dochterman, thank you very much, buddy. See you Saturday at Kinnick. This is Chad Leistikow, Des Moines Register. We appreciate you guys checking us out on Legends and Listeners from the Channel Seed Studios, only on Iowa Everywhere.